Hello viewers, welcome to the MOOC course on Internet of Things, Design Concepts and Use Cases. In this video, we will learn the concepts of sensors and actuators. What are the different types of sensors, what is the definition of sensors and the applications of sensors as well as of actuators. Now, let us see that what is a sensor. A sensor senses and measures some physical quantity and converts that measurement into the digital value. That digital value is passed to another device and for the transformation into the useful data, which will activate the other intelligent devices or the human beings. Also, sensors provide the superhuman sensory capabilities. In fact, they are able to provide an extremely wide range or wide spectrum of rich and diverse measurement of data. Now, there are different categories of sensors. First category says active or passive sensors. Now, active sensors are those which actually produce energy and which do not need any external power supply. And in the other hand, passive sensors are those which receive energy or they take the energy as an input and they need the external power supply. For example, active sensors are those, for example, that radar sensors which are being used to produce some energy. And similarly, the passive sensors examples may be light sensor, whereas they receive light as energy and correspondingly they activate. Next category is your invasive and non-invasive. Invasive sensors are the part of the environment, whereas non-invasive sensors are the external to the environment. For example, one pipe is there and within that pipe there are some fluid. Now, if the sensors we put inside the fluid, that means that is a invasive sensor. And if some sensors, for example, optical sensors, if we put in the outside skirt of the pipe, then that sensor is known as your non-invasive sensors. Next category says that is your contact or no contact sensors. Contact sensors, by name only you can understand that those sensors come in contact of the physical environment. For example, if you want to check the water level of a container, then you have to put that sensor into the water container itself and it should come in contact with the water. Then only it can measure the water level. So, that sensor is known as your contact sensor. No contact sensor means that is for example, temperature and the humidity sensor, that if the sensor is kept in the environment, no contact with any physical physical thing or physical object, that time also the sensor can sense the data. Absolute and relative category, that means the sensors takes the value as an absolute value or sometimes it measures the value as a relative value. So, depending on those, it can be categorized as absolute or the relative sensors. Also, sensors can be categorized depending on the areas of application. Sometimes the sensors are used for checking the motion, that time you can say proximity sensor. Sometimes the sensors are used to check the pressure, that time you can say the pneumatic sensor. So, sometimes different areas of application are they use the different types of categories of sensors. Here I have given some tabular in tabular formation the sensor types and the different examples of sensor. As I have told, there may be position sensor, there may be occupancy or motion sensor, there may be velocity and acceleration sensor and many more. So, first I have told that about the position sensor. Position sensor measures the position of an object in absolute scale or in relative scale, for example, potentiometer and proximity sensor. Similarly, occupation and motion sensor, by name only you can understand occupancy sensors are those which tells us the existence or the presence of an object or the any devices. So, occupancy sensors detect the presence of people or animals or birds or any other physical things, whereas motion sensors detect the movement of the people, for example, electric eye or radar. Velocity and acceleration, similarly we can check the speed or the velocity of an object when the object moves, as well as you can check the acceleration of the object also, which actually measures the changes in velocity, right. And the velocity can be measured in straight line or in the rotary movement, right. Then another sensor is your force sensor. Force sensors detect whether a physical force has been applied to that object or not. For example, viscometer, tactile sensor, touch sensor. So, those sensors are the force sensors. Another sensor we say that is a pressure sensor, which can calculate the amount of pressure that has been given to the object or the device. For example, barometer, piezometer, those are used for calculating the amount of pressure. Humidity and temperature sensor, as I have told, we are going to show you many small projects with the help of this humidity and temperature sensors also. For example, DST11, LM35, those are these temperature and humidity sensors. So, those really measures the temperature and humidity of a room, of a classroom, of an environment. Next is your biosensors. Biosensor detect the various biological elements, for example, organisms, tissues, cells, enzymes, all these things. So, for example, I have given that blood glucose biosensor, pulse oximetry. So, those sensors are used to detect the biological elements. Next is what is an actuator. Actuator is completely different from sensors. Sensors actually converts the any physical signal, physical object and the sensors, it senses some from the physical environment, and after that it converts to the digital signal. Actuators on the other hand receive the control signal, that means in terms of electric signal or the digital signal, and it triggers a physical effect or motion to the physical device. For example, in terms of motion, force and so on. From the diagram you can just see, so this is your real world or the physical environment. The sensors really senses the data from the physical environment and it converts into the digital signal. Actuators on the other hand, they receive that digital signal and again it is a it affects the physical environment, it does affect the physical device for the motion, for the other action of the physical device and so on. Now, there are different classification of actuators. For example, that types of motion, according to the types of motion, actuators can be classified. That can be the linear motion, that can be the rotary motion, or in different axis, 1 axis, 2 axis or 3 axis motion, right. Another classification is depending on the power. Actuators can be classified based on the power output. If it is giving the high power output or low power output or micro power output, depending on that the actuators will be different. Next is your that it is exhibiting the binary output or the continuous output. Depending on that actuators can be classified either as a binary or continuous. That means either it is giving the binary output or it is giving the continuous signal output. Next classification is based on the area of application. Actuators can be classified based on the specific industry application or the vertical for which it is being used, and the type of energy. It is also classified according to the type of energy, that means based on the energy type, right, it can be classified, the actuators can be classified. Now, if I say the examples of actuators, same as sensors, there are different types of actuators: mechanical actuator, electrical actuator, electromechanical actuator, then electromagnetic actuator. All these actuators are there depending on their application and the type of the application where they are used. Mechanical actuators are used for movementing or they are giving effect to the mechanical parts, for example, levers, screw jack and all these things. Electrical actuators are used in case of thyristor, then bipolar transistor or diode. Electromechanical actuators are used for AC motor, DC motor, servo motor and step motor. To run all these motors, we use this type of actuators. Electromagnetic actuators, these are used for the electromagnetic purposes, for example solenoid. For this application, solenoid application, we use this electromagnetic actuators. Similarly, there are other things, that is hydraulic and pneumatic actuators. Pneumatic actuators are used for the pressure control valves, right. Because of pressure, we use those actuators to give the pressure to the any devices. Similarly, smart material actuator, micro and nano actuator, those are actuator depending on the type of the material we are using. Nano material or micro material, those we are using for activating the devices. Now, the basic differences between sensors and the actuators. As I have told already, the sensors convert the physical quantities and characteristics into the electrical signals or digital signals. Actuator converts the electrical signal or digital signals into the physical action such as force, motion, etc. Sensors act as an input device in any control system, whereas actuator acts as an output device in a control system and placed in the output port. Sensor takes input from environment or physical devices and senses the surrounding conditions, whereas actuator takes the input from the output signal conditioning unit of system. One system has the input signal conditioning system and output signal conditioning system, and the actuator regularly takes the output from the output signal conditioning system of a unit of the system. Sensors gives output to the input signal conditioning unit of the system to convert into electrical signal, and as I have told, actuator gives the output to the environment. And fifth difference is that it gives information to the system about the environment conditions to monitor and also to control. And the actuators accepts the command from the system and it runs the physical devices or it does the physical action. Now, you can see in a small diagram I have given that how the sensor to actuators in IoT. So, first one is that it is a temperature sensor and it takes the data or it detects the heat or the temperature from the in the environment. Then it sends or detects the signal to the control center. In the control center, we analyze and it sends the command to the sprinkler to sprinkle the water, and again it goes to the sprinkler. Sprinkler is basically the physical device which turns on and put out the flame. So, from sensor to actuators, how it is working, that as an example has been given in this diagram. Now, there are different types of sensor: temperature sensor, proximity sensor, accelerometer, IR sensor. As I have told some of into the classification of sensor also, touch sensor, gas sensor, humidity sensor. So, maximum project work that we will show in the next videos, all these sensors will be used and will be shown to you as a small project work. Each and every sensor will be given the practical approach of each and every sensors. Now, these are some diagrammatical representation of sensors. For example, LM35, this is a temperature sensor, this is your IR sensors, this is your light sensor, this is your gas sensor, this is your gas sensor, and this is your proximity sensor. Proximity sensor is your position, it gives the position of the physical object. Similarly, I have shown some actuators. This is your linear actuator, rotary actuator, and different types of actuators are available. So, these are some sensors and the actuator diagrams where I have given the examples of sensors and actuators. So, thank you so much. In this small video, I just wanted to give the information about the sensors and actuators, definition of sensors and actuators, as well as different categories and types of sensors and actuators, and their application and different diagrams and of the various sensors and actuators that we use generally for the regular activities. So, thank you so much viewers. Again, in the next videos you will get to know about the practical approaches of these sensors and the small projects with all the sensors and the actuators. Thank you so much.